Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our session today on the cloud evolution with AI. For those of you who joined our earlier session, we covered some of the stuff around this. This one's taking it a little bit further and looking at infrastructure's next frontier. My name's John Arrasjid. You can read the bio on what.
I'm Chris Gully. I work in the VMware office of the CTO, cover the space of AI, ML, and HPC. But we have 12 minutes, so we're going to go.
Yep. So there's an evolution as well as a revolution going on. Evolution, if we look at the history of where we were, 30, 40, 50 years ago when computers first started, all the way to where we are today, it's a similar progression to what we see with evolution, but it is actually happening so fast, we also consider it a revolution. So for AI and infrastructure today, we've got several key areas that we're looking at for modernizing so that we can meet the demands of new workloads, including those that are tied to AI and large language models. There's scalability and elasticity, there's distributed computing, there's edge computing. In fact, if you actually go over to the VMware booth, you can see a police car that's actually been set up with some of the aspects of this. And I'll let you guys go take a look at that and learn more. Data lakes and warehouses, this is really important. We're getting beyond the point of petabytes of data and to actually support this. We're getting beyond what we can do on the networking side. There's going to be a lot more evolution happening with what we're doing in our technology as well as with the hardware vendors. And then there's the serverless architecture. And when we look at driving a self-healing modern infrastructure, we're looking at resource optimization, we're looking at security enhancements, we're looking at automated troubleshooting, we're looking at predictive analysis, self-healing mechanisms. This is one of the things that as we start adding on more of Gen AI with the large language models, and as the future comes closer to us with quantum computing, we're getting the ability to do a lot more with self-healing environments. There's still the need to do pre-authorization for change control and all of that, but as you know, with VMware, there are some things that you can automate, and it'll automatically do the update with the CMDB and so on. But the last area is looking at infrastructure evolution. And so as part of that, we're looking at scaling the AI workloads and the demands on the resources. There's compute, accelerators, storage, networking. We'll see other things that are coming that'll fit in as well, including things that are being pushed out to the edge. I'll let you run on the tech areas.
Yeah, so the other thing is that we're looking at how do we take these elements that are shifting and changing. By the way, the 2 slides ago we showed all these different elements like edge and stuff. They all have to work together if you really want a successful adoption of AI and how you move that across your data centers, your edge, operationalizing those things. But at a compute layer, we're making sure we expose the resources effectively, making sure you can easily use them, making GPUs really accessible, so driving multiple ways of adopting GPUs, whether it's pass-through or using a virtualized GPU as well, giving you choice, but also looking at performance as a key tenet. Then storage. Obviously, storage is kind of the gem because the data is where all of this starts. Data's king, and if you're looking at training or fine-tuning a language model, it all starts with how your data is organized and collected. We're looking at how we deliver better data services to our customers, things like database as a service, vector database as a service, really making sure that the data stream is consistent, and then we can move data and audit how it's being used across the entire ecosystem. And then lastly, networking. So interconnects become very critical. Customers have existing interconnects today that are pretty well for some of these things, but as they evolve to want to be able to do distributed learning, you're going to have to upgrade. And so how do we do that though, but how do we not leave behind sort of what you're already doing? Maximizing what you have today, going to the future, enabling interconnects 400 gig so you can use them to train, and then transitioning back into normal 10, 25 gig interconnects. So private AI, I think you've all hopefully heard this. If you haven't, I'm sorry, you really should hear about it. But it's kind of a theme here. It's really about putting the power back into the customer's hands. It's saying, you're using data that most likely has provenance that you want to protect. So how do you do that? How do you take control of what you're doing? How do you implement, whether it be private cloud or hybrid cloud, how do you implement a private AI posture so that you can drive viable outcomes, but not expose yourself at the same time?
Now we look at private AI, and there's 3 core tenets. We want to look at having a highly distributed environment. This is one of the reasons why we talk about multi-cloud as being one of the ways to enable us in doing what we're trying to do right now. And this is what we're also hearing from customers that are starting to develop advanced analytics and are starting to look at Gen AI and large language models. There's the data privacy and control. You all know about regulations in whatever region of the world that you are in. There's things in Europe and US and other countries around privacy and confidential information, but there's also IP. And as you start seeing the models that are being based on what's publicly available on the internet, what is validated as real information versus non-evident,
bad information,
supported, yes, exactly. And then there's access control as well as auditability. In many of the ways that we look at how this is being done, the biggest problem that we've seen come up is by using all this public data, the initial problem that we had was getting biased responses, including responses that I would say are things that I don't want my kids to see. And I'll leave it at that. But there's a lot of things that are on the internet that the early stages of this would reveal that you don't want for a lot of the things that you would do for work as well as for life.
How do you avoid hallucinations? You've heard hallucinations with the models. Models are creative. They will find a path to your answer, even if the information they find is bad, or even if they make it up. So you want to get away from having models having to do that. They want to have good information so they can find a path to the answer that's accurate, and you need to be able to validate the sources. So you'll start to see source validation coming up if you use things like ChatGPT and language models. I want to know where you got the data. I want to validate that it's good. I want to trust it. And that's something we're focused on for private AI as well.
So there's a couple of things we're going to cover related to flexibility and scalability with the hybrid cloud and with private AI. There's security, there's networking, there's storage. Let's run through a couple of key things. On the security side, we're looking at dynamic security policies, selective data exposure, what can you see? On the scalability side, we want to have expandable security solutions that will adapt and support what we're trying to do what you may be trying to do within your organization. And then there's also the unified threat management because of some of the things that are automated in relation to the way some of these LLMs and the models, generative AI models are being used. There is the potential, just like with our computer systems today, for nefarious users to introduce things that could be ransomware or other types of security compromises in kind of a slightly different way that you would normally see in traditional infrastructure.
Yeah, so building off that, we're actually, if you go to the Tech Zone talks today, it's just like a little bit of a teaser. It's a project called Cypress. It's really showing what we're doing as a company to integrate AI into our platforms so we can augment the user, the human. Humans are human. We get tired. We can only work so many hours. So we're looking for ways to implement AI so that security analysts can engage with a model, and so they can get alerts. The models will detect anomalies, alert the analysts and say, hey, there's a problem here, and the actual analyst can say, okay, tell me what's going on, where is it happening, what users are involved, and the language model will actually output the details so they can get to faster resolution and not feel so overwhelmed, right? Because otherwise they're looking at tickets, they're trying to look at this very broad landscape of alerts, and they're trying to pick the things they think are important. This augmentation is going to help them find the things that are really important, solve them fast, and then keep the business safer, and ideally keep the users more active.
And just like what we talked about on security and the example of how that can actually provide benefit, we have the same thing for networking. I'll let you go read through this. Storage is another area. So again, flexibility and scalability are essential. And then we start looking at this concept of self-healing environments. If we have this type of knowledge and we have this ability to start taking action on it, we have a number of different areas that we've shown here on this particular slide. Resource optimization, self-learning, et cetera, et cetera. These are key areas that we see as being essential as we move forward, and we see things that are going to be coming. And the very last slide that we have is actually giving you our vision of AI-driven infrastructure. And we'll see changes on this. For those of you who've come and seen us before on our cloud evolution talks in the past, there are different layers. And here, the key thing I want to highlight is the hardware layer, there's a cloud layer, there's the as-a-service layers, and then there's the edge aspects. And as I said before, there's examples of that on the floor, not just at the VMware booth, but several other areas. And I definitely want to encourage you to go forward and take a look at that. So with that, I want to thank you for joining our session on how this is going to impact you on your work, life, and engineer. This session, as well as our previous session, are recorded, so you'll have them available. And I want to thank you guys for joining us.
And we did it in 12 minutes.
Made it.